This is the Voice of Early Childhood podcast. Hello everyone, welcome to the Voice of Early Childhood podcast. My name is Angelica Salinska, I'm your host, and today I'm joined by Stephanie Warrender, who is primary school teacher, music consultant and director of Laulau Learning UK. Thank you very much, Stephanie, for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So today we are talking all about song drawing. So we're going to get straight into it. And Stephanie, please will you tell us, what is song drawing for those people that don't know? And I know you kind of talked me through it a little bit in our first meeting, but I'd love to really hear a lot more from you on exactly what song drawing is.
So song drawing is a holistic, I think is the main word here, holistic form of art play. And it combines musical expression, visual expression, bodily expression, rhyming, storytelling, movement, all in a cross-curricular way. So very much aimed at, you think of all those primaries of the early years curriculum, and just the early years curriculum in general, and merging up into Key Stage 1 curriculum too, which I'll talk about more as we go on with the podcasts. But also wonderful for special educational needs children too. So it really works with speech, augmentation, linguistic skills, all the fine motor skills and gross motor skills for children too. So helping them in those different ways. Fantastic for self-efficacy, self-esteem. So I can go into this a little bit in more detail as the podcast has rolled on, but just wonderful for all those skill building things that we do in early years, just all the time, but another tool to use through music and arts.
And really bringing everything together.
Absolutely.
Like you say, very holistic. So in terms of, so we can kind of visually and, and be able to kind of picture it in our head, what does it look like? So like physically, what do children do and educators do?
So there's lots of different ways in which we can song draw. The main way in which people will see me doing song drawing, especially song drawing training when I'm working with educators or therapists, is having roll paper on the floor and children singing, moving, dancing, drawing together. And that's really what it can look like. But it can also look like just singing, standing up and moving at the same time. It can look like peer communication. It can be positive touch. So it might be something that where a mark has actually not been left. The anxiety is taken off the children there. It might be drawing on back. But I've also noticed when I'm doing song drawing with special needs children, especially maybe neurodiverse children, they struggle having that touch done in an area that they can't see. So we talk about lots of different ways in which we can song draw. So maybe it might be positive touch, starting with the hand, where a child can see somebody else touching them. And we very much create a very positive atmosphere, and an atmosphere where children can either involve themselves or remove themselves at any time as well. And it's to build all these different life skills. So things like, we've all had it as educators, children coming in back off the playground, "Miss, she's hurt me, he's done this to me." And a lot of the time it's because a child to begin with has said that this activity is okay. And then maybe the activity's got a bit too much for said child. And the child's then said no more, but this other child hasn't comprehended that. So it's also building on those skills, the communication skills within children, the peer skills, relationship skills, to allow them to change their minds and also feel really safe in each other's company. So this is what song drawing can do for children.
Okay, and I know that we've got lots to talk through in terms of the importance of music and education.
Yeah.
Things like that. But firstly, how did you find out about song drawing yourself? How did you get into this? Because you're not, when I introduced yourself, so you're a primary school teacher, music consultant, and then director of Laulau Learning UK as well. So you do lots of things. So where does song drawing come in? How did you find out about it? Like, tell us about this journey.
Absolutely. So I have been a teacher for over 10 years now, maybe 12 years, lose count. And I have worked in all key stages. So early years, key stage 1 and key stage 2. And I loved key stage 2 as well. But early years is a very special place in my heart. I used to work in Leeds, so I live in Leeds, but now I work in Bradford, so quite an inner city school in Bradford. So anyone that knows Bradford will know that it's very culturally diverse in Bradford. At the moment, I currently have 100% Muslim children in my class.
Oh,
I have
wow.
never had that before. It's wonderful. The different culture that they bring and then they teach me about is fantastic. So I'm really loving the school that I'm in at the moment. The other thing that's great about the school is that we were at something called an Erasmus school. So an Erasmus school, some people might know what it is, but it basically means that we have links with international schools. So schools around Europe, such as schools in Romania, Turkey, Greece, Cyprus, and Finland. So this is where it links into our song drawing. I was really lucky to be one of the teachers to be sent over to Finland. We got a grant to be able to send teachers to all of these countries and see how these countries learn, how they educated the children, different methods that they used. So I was really lucky to go over to Finland and see how they use their outdoor provision, how they used music in their provision. As you know, as you said with my title, music is a very keen interest of mine, and I've done lots of work with music with young children too. Then following on from that, a lady that we met in Finland called Mina came over to us to pilot something that she'd been doing in Finland for years, something called song drawing. So Mina, who is now my business partner, Mina Lapalainen, she owns Laulau in Finland. And Laulau derives from a Finnish word, laululaukku, which translates to singing bag or song bag.
Okay.
So she came over and she piloted song drawing. I've never heard of it before. I mean, no one in the UK had heard of it because it's very much a Scandi method. And I was just blown away. So as a musician and as an early years educator at the time, this is exactly what I was looking for to bring to the classroom. What other tools, how else can I bring music into the classroom? And this was it. Because it wasn't just bringing music, it was bringing mark making through music. It was bringing building self-esteem through music. It was bringing confidence through music. It was how we teach science through music, how we teach maths through music. It was just everything combined. Like I say, go back to that word holistic. I immediately started to use it in my classroom with wonderful results. Every Friday, it's song drawing day today, and we'd do it provisionally as well throughout the week. And then I'd have a session where I would specifically do song drawing too. And then it was I'd been using it for about a year and a half, maybe at this point. And I'd had a friend of mine in Leeds who is also an early years teacher. She decided to reach out to me about her class. And we all have this in our early years classes that it's a stereotype, but it's a stereotype that's true. We seem to have each year a group of boys that just do not want to pick up a pen. They have no interest in mark making. They want to run around like headless chickens outside, which is wonderful. And we can get lots of learning opportunities from that. But it was different ways in how to lure a child to mark make, and then using those pre-writing skills, hopefully be able to write. I started mentioning song drawing to her, and obviously she'd not heard of it before. So to cut a longer story shorter, I got in contact with Mina again, and we just had a discussion about how we can bring song drawing to the UK and how I could be the representative in the UK for Laulau, for song drawing, not just song drawing. We've got lots of other methods coming out as well, and spread the word really. So lots of contracts later, setting up my own company here. I trade as Laulau Learning UK. We've got lots of other methods coming. So song drawing is the first method, and that's the one that I'm predominantly doing now. And then I'm also tailoring it myself. I'm writing other music too, because our education system is completely different to Finland. So the way I'm tailoring it is to make sure that it is tailored to our UK education system too.
Yeah.
Now, through my time with actually starting Laulau, I kind of thought I would just work with educators, but I've started working with therapists as well.
Okay.
Music therapists, speech therapists, occupational therapists.
Mm-hmm.
And they've also seen the wonders in what song drawing can do.
Because song drawing is very therapeutic, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about that side of things then. So let's talk about the therapeutic side, the emotions. So like the fact that music is a form of self-expression, and how do we see all of this play out in early childhood specifically?
So it's funny because when I've started training therapists, I very much looked into, especially music therapy, I looked into what the key elements are for music therapy. And when I read it, I was thinking, this is early years. This is not just SEND children. This is what we do as educators in early years. Not only are we educators, I don't think we realise it, but we are therapists as well in our own way.
Yeah, very much so.
Things like key elements, imitation, shared attention. How much do we do that as educators? Shared attention all the time. Peer attention, communication and language, not just in the simple form of having a conversation, but in lots of different forms as well. So all of these different aspects in therapy, I was reading them and I was just relating to them all as an educator. And it made me realise the crossover between education and therapy, especially in the early years. Maybe not so much as the children get older when you've got neurotypical children, but with the early years, these are the foundations of what we base our learning on.
And like you say, everything's very, very holistic, isn't it? So so I guess, is it, when you're talking about therapy, are you talking about music therapy specifically, or just kind of general therapy, and what kind of types of therapists do you work with?
So therapy in a general sense makes us feel like it's something that will relax us, that will help us with our emotions, and that's true. It's just targeted in different ways. So with music therapy, obviously we're using music to aid that therapy. When we're talking about speech therapy, it's very much focused on the speech element and how we hear things and what our speech production is like. And the wonderful thing about song drawing is it aids these different kind of therapies. So it has the music element to aid music therapy. It's got the lyrics, and it helps the different songs that we have help with potentially selective mutism. So it's not just talking, it's different sounds that we can make out of our mouth. So it might be, I draw a little circle. So that sound, so a child might not be able to sing, I draw a little circle, but they will be able to potentially make those auditory sounds. Well, what would it sound like if it was a square? And you're hitting all the different style of learners there, but through music and through sound. So they can visually see it in the air, they're hearing it, they're doing it themselves as well. So you can see how it can work through therapy and through education.
And as you were doing that as well, I could see that you could really involve so many learners, and everybody is included and taking part in one way or another, even if they can't take part in the whole thing, in terms of, like you say, if they're not going to sing with you, then at least they're doing the actions or making the sounds. So everyone is involved, and it seems very inclusive, the whole activity. Absolutely.
I've recently worked with some SEND schools and some children that can't hold a pen. So with that, we're not looking at fine motor skills, we're looking at different gross motor skills and different ways that they are able to maybe move their body and how they can use different sensory elements, or it might be somebody else bringing in a sensory element for them to take part in. So for example, raindrops through a baking tray over the head and somebody else tapping it so they can hear the different sounds that raindrops might make through, or a paintbrush on top of it, or somebody else touching them with a paintbrush bristle while through singing, and they might be able to join in with the singing. So you can see these different layers of how children can be involved through song drawing too. And this is really the way I train, is very much showing these different ways as well.
And I was going to say, it really stimulates the senses, doesn't it? Again, going back to that word holistic. So really fantastic as a multi-sensory approach, I guess, song drawing.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
And I guess when we were talking about singing and making different noises as well, but really thinking about vocabulary. So it really builds and enriches vocabulary, doesn't it? In terms of all of the different, you can really extend children's language by bringing in so many new words, terms, and like, we said, even the sound effects is still really enriching children's language, or at least self-expression, if not language that they use.
Yeah, I think we had the conversation before, didn't we, about vocabulary and the amount of times I've come across a word that children haven't heard before, and it shocked me. So we was doing a song about a house. Oh, how I wish I had a little house with strong walls and a wooden floor. And oh, how I wish my house had a roof and a chimney too, of course, of course. And I'd say 70 to 80% of the children in my class did not know what a chimney was. And it wasn't until I was doing these songs and discussing the lyrics and teaching them in different ways that it would have even occurred to me that they didn't know what a chimney was. And so we were drawing it. Well, what does a chimney look like? And then we looked at lots of different ways the chimneys could look like. Because actually, if some of them live in a flat or a caravan, or lots of different housing, really. I'm thinking about my own house. We've taken our fireplace out of our house. So we take for granted the vocabulary that children have, even neurotypical children.
And I guess when you're perhaps reading a book with children and there's a chimney, they may or may not ask what a chimney is. You may not use that vocabulary. There may be a picture there, but it isn't part of the story. And we just kind of take it for granted that they know. But when you are singing and doing the actions at the same time, and they are repeating the actions and mimicking you and copying you, and then they're thinking, well, I'm doing the chimney bit, but I don't know what the chimney looks like or what a chimney is, and I'm doing some kind of action, and they can't then visualize it in their head in order to be able to complete that action and repeat what you're doing. And I guess that's when that curiosity comes in of like, oh, this word that we're repeating, and in singing often things are repeated, and the action, and it kind of comes together of like, but I don't know what this is. It's not just a picture. It's not just mentioned once. It's that action and the singing and that language. And then they may question, what is this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not just song drawing, not just the music that we have. It's all music in general. My class at the moment, we've been learning about continents, and I can probably think of at least 7 friends that probably couldn't name all the continents in our world.
I probably can't, yes.
All 29 children can name all 7 continents because I've taught it through song.
Through singing. And how old are the children that you teach now?
5.
Oh, wow.
5 and 6. Well, 5 and 6. I'm currently in year 1 this year. And I still do song drawing. So I've been talking a lot about the early years, but it definitely moves up into year 1. I'm noticing so I've done a year 1 quite a few times before. And this year, which I'm sure a lot of people will relate to who are listening to this, there is just a massive dip in confidence, resilience in the whole school. I don't know if it's because of COVID or this is just the way that things are at the moment. Working independently. At this time of the year, I'd be thinking year 1, majority of them can work independently. And I'm noticing that majority of them still need an adult support. So it's about how do we instill independence, instill resilience into these children. And music definitely is a big part of our class, and how we use music to instill this confidence, because then confidence drives into independence.
Hiya! Just quickly, I wanted to ask a favour from all of the listeners and viewers. It would really help this podcast if you subscribe on the platform you are listening or watching on. This will help the Voice of Early Childhood podcast to continue putting out thought-provoking and reflective episodes with a range of guests. And if you are enjoying listening to this podcast, please do share it with someone else who you think would love it too. And of course, as always, we encourage you to share your voice too. If you have reflections, thoughts, and comments, please do share this episode on social media with your comments and tag the Voice of Early Childhood. Let's keep these thought-provoking discussions going. Thank you. I'll let you get back to the episode now. You've talked before about memory benefits of music as well.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that in terms of the younger children. When we think about, they've got a lot to remember. They've got a lot of new things that things that are coming into their lives, like you said, language and learning numbers and phonics and things like that. Lots of, I guess, quite abstract things for them to gain an understanding of and remember.
Yeah. I've been doing a bit of reading at the moment, all about the neuroscience of music and how singing can help us and aid us in lots of different ways. And the relation between music and reading and phonics, like you've just been saying, is amazing. It's something that even before I got into songdrawing, I didn't know. I didn't know all of this. So, putting it simply, there's research now out there, and it's been redone since I've even read up about it, that basically states that if a child can keep a beat, just 8 beats, by the time they are 3 or 4 years old, then they are on track to be a typical reader by the age of 5. Which is, if you take that to your head teacher, that's what they want to hear. Yeah. And it's that correlation between so we've got different parts of our brain. It's quite hard to explain it, but there's different cortexes, different parts of our brain. So we've got the auditory cortex, which is all about what we hear. And then we've got something called the motor cortex, which is the part of our brain that makes us move. So the motor cortex is there, and it can make us move voluntary or involuntary. So it might be that our bodies are moving. Right now, my hands are moving around, and that's very much me when I'm talking. I could stop that if I wanted to, but there is an element of it being involuntary, because if I don't think about it, my body is naturally doing it.
Yeah.
And it's doing it because it can hear my voice. So it's the auditory cortex talking to the motor cortex. So they talk to each other, and my talking, my speech is then mirroring my motor cortex. So if you just think you're in the kitchen, you're doing some washing up, and you've got some music on, and your hips start moving, you can stop your hips from moving, but it feels involuntary. Yeah. Because again, the music that you're hearing, that element of your brain, is talking to the motor cortex, which you think are the motor skills, all your movements, and it's telling it to move. So already we know that they talk to each other a lot. And this is where phonics comes in. So we hear the different sounds, and then our motor is moving our mouths in a way to copy those sounds. And that is where speech then comes from. So it's one hearing it, then talking to the other one, and then us speaking it. So if we are not able to listen to it properly and hear the different nuances in speech, therefore we can't really talk to the motor cortex, therefore we won't be able to speak it. It's the same with singing. It's the same with reading. So this is how music and reading links up, because those two different parts of our brain link up so well.
And I guess music is fantastic for, like you say, hearing those nuances, hearing all those subtle differences in sounds. And that is really what phonics is, especially when children are first introduced to different letters and sounds, they need to be able to, the first kind of stage is to be able to listen, and then being able to distinguish between those sounds. And all of what we're talking about now really, to me, sounds like pre-phonics and all of the work that early years educators do with children.
Yes. So we're going straight back to even babies.
Mm-hmm.
Think of, and then you're going into your 2-year-olds. Think of that phase 2-3-year-olds, the phase 1 phonics. Some people still calling it that. And that's why that's so important, environmental sounds, bringing that into it as well, because sound is music. And we discussed, didn't we, about singing and the confidence. It's not about just about children, it's about adults as well. And what I'm finding a lot when I'm training people is that it's not really about the children's confidence with music. It's about the adults that are working with them and how we can instill confidence in those adults to be able to sing with them. So there's like a difference between active music making and passive music listening. So you've got the passive music listening, which we do a lot in our classrooms. We put songs on for the children to maybe sing along to. So there's an element of the active music there, but they're listening to it. And where we sing ourselves, and we can slow down music, we can speed it up, we can add tonality into it too. It is purely active music listening. And we know from research that active music gains far better results all over in all different skills than passive music listening.
So actively engaging rather than just having it on in the background, just there kind of existing, and you don't really know that it's there because it's just background noise. And I know that you mentioned something about babies listening to classical music actually not really being useful for musical awareness, and a lot of people do kind of talk about, and I guess there's a lot of things out there to say that exposing babies to classical music is really useful for their brain development potentially. And I don't really know any kind of research around this. What is it that you kind of understand? It's
been debunked many times now that just popping on some classical music for a baby will make that baby more intelligent as it grows up. It is not true. Don't get me wrong, obviously exposing children to lots of different genres of music. I do it every day with my class. I expose them to different genres of music. I tell them about the different genre. We discuss whether we enjoy that music or not. And
it's very, really, I was going to say, culturally based as well.
Yeah, and there's definitely a time and a place for it. But if that's all we are doing throughout a child's life is just exposing them to different genres and making them listen to music and not actually making them part of the music making process, then they aren't going to gain from music what they could be able to gain from it. Not even close to the amount that they could gain from it. But kind of touching on going back to us singing as adults and not having that confidence, I was talking to a group of people actually at a music expo, and even there I found people that struggled with their own confidence, their own self-esteem to sing in a public space or even with their children. I get it with adults, that's always really difficult, isn't it? But with children it seems to be a bit easier. And I talked to them about the fact that they won't know it, but they've already sang to, if they've had children, if they've had babies, to their babies or their children's babies or their babies in their nursery without them knowing it. Because the way that we talk to very young children or babies in that, oh, she's gorgeous, oh, hi. And we talk like that to our dogs as well.
Yeah, that's
I definitely do. Talk to my dog a bit like that too. But the element of us doing that is called, it's 2 different words to it, Parentese or motherese. And it's the way that our voice falls up and down is exactly what a melody is. So you are technically, even though you think that you are talking in just a different voice, maybe a silly voice, technically you are singing, because the way your voice is moving up and down in a melody, it's technically singing. And actually, there's been some studies shown that children that haven't had this Parentese or motherese, any babies that haven't had it, have had delays in their speech and augmentation as they've been growing.
Okay,
yeah,
that's really interesting. And it seems like it is something that we do just do naturally with babies and like pets, like you said. So it comes quite naturally. We don't really think about it, but actually, if children are, I guess, deprived of it, if they don't experience that, having such great effects on their development, that's really interesting to hear that, because it's just considering like the things that children that I guess maybe are a little bit more, well, I guess more privileged if they do spend more time with adults around them that are loving and caring and do have that time. And, either spend time with adults in the setting or with their families and get enough attention from them and enough engagement, then they really can benefit from so much more than children who actually are a little bit more lonely or left by themselves, or at least are not engaged with as much.
Yeah. Because it's not even just speech. I also read that it delays emotional responses too.
Okay, so that makes sense.
It's both, yeah. Really interesting stuff.
This is something that I guess we could have another whole kind of podcast episode on all of the research behind all of this. There's so much to go into. But so we've addressed quite a few things around like the education side of the benefits of music for educational purposes. And empowering educators was really important to address, because, like you said, educators don't see themselves as singers and musicians. When they have to sing with children, when they feel like they should sing with children, they feel like they need to be good at singing. And there's something that you mentioned to me before around being your children's own personal rock stars.
Yes,
I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? We are very quick, and I think it's a very British thing as well, to very quickly put ourselves down in lots of different ways. And it could be, where did you get that top from? It's lovely. Oh, it was only £3 from, insert cheap shop. So we're very quick to do that. Or we're not the kind of country that put ourselves up. We're waiting for other people to do it for us. I read something, and this music educator had asked in a room full of people who doesn't think that they can sing, and 70% of people put their hands up. And then out of those 70% people, do you think you can't sing because somebody has told you? And 90% of those 70% of people had put their hand up because somebody had told them that they can't sing in tune.
Okay.
I don't know whether that was like the crux reason why they said they couldn't sing in tune, but over their lives, somebody had said that to them. And it just shows, doesn't it, that other people's words really do affect us, and our words really affect the children. And also our confidence rubs off on them, but in a completely different way. So we want to be putting all the positive responses, not negative, onto the children. I'm going to be completely honest, I really can't sing that well. I am not a singer. I don't care. So I will sing anytime, any place. But really, I'm an instrumentalist. I'm not a singer. But because I don't care and I just have the confidence to do it, nobody ever says anything to me. It's only if I sang with very little confidence that somebody might make a comment to me about it. But because I do it with such confidence, like I know what I'm doing, that no one would say that I was out of
questions it.
Yeah. And for sure, the children wouldn't. And when you go back to that conversation that we had in a previous podcast, okay, let's say you can't hold a tune as well as somebody else, as well as a wonderful professional singer, which is most of us. Does it matter? Does a 3-year-old care? The answer is absolutely not. My mum sings regularly with my children, and she's not a professional singer. She's fine, like if you wanted to judge her professionally. But because she just does it, the children absolutely love it. And my children now, because of the confidence that we have instilled in them in singing, they sing all the time. And they don't have a care about their own abilities, because I am their own personal rock star. I hope that I am the personal rock star for the children in my class too. It was funny, there was my phonics intervention class, we were doing the sound, and we did sing. So Mrs. Warrender always sings. She's always singing all the time. And it's funny that they just relate the word sing to me. Just because that's who I am, that's what I do, and that's what I'm trying to instill in others.
And it's so nice to hear that the confidence that you have can really empower other people as well. And it's all about just trying to be that little bit more confident in yourself, because it really encourages the children and other people as well. But I love that phrase. I thought we need to make sure that we mention it so everyone else can hear it as well. Your own children's personal rock stars. I think that's fantastic. It's a great message to send out there, to kind of consider that when you are singing with children.
Does not matter if you're in tune or not, or if you think you're in tune or not, because you might be wrong. You might be a brilliant singer and not know it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think finally it's important to address the fact that, as I mentioned at the start, you are a teacher as well as director of Laulau Learning UK and a music consultant. And really, I think it's important to share with people who are listening, how do you balance all of this? So you're still a primary school teacher, you work at different events as well, you do training, so you've got this small business and you've got a family as well. You're working. How does it all work out for you? And how has it been from the beginning, I guess? And where are you now? How long has it been that you launched or started Laulau Learning UK?
I had the idea back in the beginning of 2021, and it was when we had the second lockdown that I ended up having the conversations with Mina about it. And we decided that it was going to be a viable business. It recently, shortly after that conversation, I actually found out I was pregnant with my second child.
Okay.
And I was thinking, this has actually thrown a bit of a spanner in the works, because I'm going to be off on maternity leave and I wanted to start the business. But actually, it ended up being a blessing starting the business and being on maternity, because being on maternity with my second as well, I knew what I was doing-ish. I was able to access different business support, set up the business on maternity leave, have that time to do the little things that I needed to do. When I went back to school in then September 22, so went off at the end of 21. I then went back after maternity leave part-time. So instead of part-time to spend the extra days with my second, I got to spend a bit more time with her, but then I used the business as well. So I now do 2 days on the business, 2.5 at school, and then half a day. I pick my daughter up early from nursery and we have a lovely Friday afternoon together. And it sounds a bit chaotic, but to those people that have been teachers for a long time, on my Mondays and Tuesdays when I do the business, yes, I travel all over the country, but on days like today and yesterday, I've had a hot cup of coffee and I finished it.
Yeah, that's always such a big privilege, isn't it?
I know. having some wonderful meetings like yourself, speaking to other like-minded educators, professionals, it actually makes me a better teacher because I'm able to reflect on my own practice in this time. So I don't just do the business, I do some other things to do with school as well. It makes me a better teacher. I then have more headspace for my family. So it makes me a better mother. I feel like my balance now is just perfect. I'm doing this thing now with song drawing, with Laulau, that I'm so passionate about. And obviously I'm still very passionate about teaching as well, but they are so different. Teaching can suck that passion out of you sometimes, depending on what school you are in, depending on what time of the year it is. And reports are coming up, and that's always a really tricky time of the year. So being able to balance it, have a partner teacher at school, so we job share, and having each other to lean on has been the best decision I have made in my career. It is wonderful. So if anyone is thinking about doing it and worried about it financially, maybe, the way that I've done it works because I'm still getting the salary coming in, I'm still getting a regular income. I could go back full time. It maybe not in my school, but I could find another school. There's teaching jobs out there. I could go back. That's the wonderful thing about teaching. You'll always have a job. So I didn't really have anything to lose. And yeah, if you're thinking about it, then definitely take the plunge and give it a go.
I think that's a great piece of advice, to just really just go for it, especially if you're really passionate about something, because you started off your teaching career not really in not at all in that traditional sense. Your degree was in music, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And everything that you did was around music, and that passion always came through music first, and now you're back into it, and like you say, it's very different to the teaching side of things, although you are still talking about education and you are educating young children and older people as well, adults, through Laulau UK. But like you say, it is different, and I think it's so important to have a passion and go with it as well, to really fuel you as a person. And I think something that I guess a lot of women struggle with often, especially when they have had children, that they kind of lose a piece of themselves, becoming a mother and really having to take care of the family, having to take care of your children. You either lose that passion or maybe some of your career in terms of, having to take a step back, or you don't have anything that is very much you, and that you feel like I'm doing this for me and this is my passion, and everything can become about your children or your family, and there's not that much room for yourself anymore, and you kind of don't really, I guess you sometimes end up feeling guilty if you do something that is for you. But it's so important because, as you say, you can be a better mother, you can be a teacher as well, if you do focus on yourself.
Absolutely. I actually find that the amount of times I get the question, would you do Laulau full time? My answer is never no, but it's never yes. Currently, it works. I find that when I train people and I say that I'm also a classroom-based teacher and I'm a music director in my school as well, I suddenly become far more relatable to these people that I'm training than if I just did Laulau full time. And I think anyone that has gone into potentially senior leadership, that have removed themselves from the classroom, it only takes 2 years to get out of that mindset of being in a classroom. I'd say my mum was a early years lead for 30 odd years, and she said that just a couple of years being retired, and she's that I don't think I could now go back in again. You do lose it quickly, but you also can gain it quite quickly too. Because teaching moves so quickly. New documentation is coming out all the time. New schemes, like we're seeing all the phonics schemes have recently come out now, and all the new Facebook groups, teaching Facebook groups, are all talking about which different schemes they're doing and whether they're enjoying it, whether they're not enjoying it, and whether they preferred the old way of teaching phonics. So teaching is just moving so quickly, and I love still having my foot in the door there because it does make me relatable, and it makes me change the way I train too. So I train and I change things because I knew new documentation's come out. I've read the documentation and I go, well, it says this in the documentation, so this is what we're going to have a quick focus on today in our training session. So if you are wanting to set up something that is slightly related, like I have, it's important financially, but also for both of those careers to have your foot in the door both ways too.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Like you say, making yourself relatable, but also being able to relate your content, your training, whatever it is that you do, to what's currently happening in the sector.
Yeah.
And being up to date and really making sure that you know what's going on, essentially. So I know you mentioned that you have future plans for Laulau UK, and it's not just around song drawing, as other methods. Can you share any of those?
Yes. So I'm going to Finland at the end of June, and Mina and I are doing some writing together and some training together. And I'm bringing Songdrawing 2 out to the UK in September this year.
Okay.
And then I'm hoping I'll have Songdrawing 1, which is the basic levels of Songdrawing 2 in September, and then hopefully next year bringing out it's called Musatunto, which is all about how music makes us feel.
Okay.
How it makes us move, how it makes us feel, very emotional based.
Yeah, I was going to say, like we were talking about emotions earlier. So really, yeah, based on those emotions, self-expression potentially, maybe a bit more therapeutic.
Yeah. So instrumental as well, rather than with song drawing is very lyric based. Just the pure instrumental of music, if it's fast, the tempo's fast, how that might make us draw, how it might make us move. If it's slower, a lullaby, how that maybe slows our heartbeat down. Through doing the neuroscience reading as well, there has been a lot of research based on different tempos of songs and different nursery rhymes. So if you're singing quite an upbeat nursery rhyme with a child, then they will match your energy and they will come up and they will be energetic with the song. Whereas if we sing a lullaby, maybe Twinkle Twinkle, really low, slow, it actually brings a child's heartbeat down, and a mother and child, or a teacher and children, they can sync up. And it's about how we can sync with the music, with our movements and with our bodies.
Wow, yeah, that's that really made me think around self-regulation, co-regulation in particular as well, really regulating those emotions together, and I guess using music as a medium to support that. That sounds great. That sounds really exciting. I'd love to hear more about that when you've kind of set things in stone a little bit more. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much, Stephanie. Thank you for sharing everything about Laulau UK and, what is song drawing, and for us to really, all the listeners, to get an understanding of what it is. And it's great that you demonstrated with your singing as well, and the actions. It's always great to see. And there's so many examples of how music and song drawing and singing can be so beneficial for children's development and adults as well, really. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Viewers and listeners can find Stephanie's article on the Voice of Early Childhood website. And if you like listening to this episode, you may also enjoy a previous episode with Tasha Breton on supporting families in understanding phonics through music. The link is in this episode description. So thank you, Stephanie, once again. And it'll be great to follow your journey and to hear more about you.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's been really lovely.